Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a few people still joining, but we'll just do kind of a few administrative items to start with. My name is Heidi Decker, and I'm the Marketing Manager for SmartDeploy. And you are here today for our webcast. This is the Simplified Solutions to Common IT Scenarios. We put together a great webcast. We're going to push to keep it to 30 minutes. Just in respect of your time, and thank you so much for being here in advance. We've got a few people in the room here today that I just want to introduce. We have our technical resources, Eric Nymark and Alan Marsh, who are going to just kind of be here to answer some technical questions if they come up. And then the main voices you're going to hear today are from Spencer Dunford, our Director of Sales, and Aaron Suzuki, SmartDeploy CEO and Founder. A few quick items. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask those via the chat or the Q&A feature over on the right-hand side of the WebEx screen. We are also recording this webcast, and so after the presentation, tomorrow morning, we'll send out a link to the recording and also to the presentation slides. So if for some reason you get pulled away from your desk, don't worry. We'll send all of that follow-up stuff out to you in an email tomorrow morning. Other than that, I think we're pretty much set to get going. Feel free to just ask those questions. We'll do a short Q&A session at the end just to make sure that we get your questions answered. So I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Aaron to get started.
Thanks, Heidi. As we've advanced our product strategy and added customers, we thought it would be really useful to talk about some of the common scenarios around which the product can be used and how you would use it there, and really provide some insight as to good things to do generally, whether it's with our tool or with any other tool that you would use for these kinds of tasks. And we know that there are a lot of reasons that people don't use tools for some of these things because they're painful and problematic and it becomes impractical. And so we wanted to talk about things you could do to make those tasks become more practical. And that's really the objective today. We'll talk about two different fundamental scenarios. One is new employee onboarding or provisioning new hardware generally, which is anytime, and things are evolving quickly with consumerization of IT and bring your own computer becoming more popular. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but by and large, most organizations, and I'm sure the majority of you attending the webcast are in this camp, still provide hardware for the vast majority of your workers. And even with consumerization of IT and IT policies creeping in governing how people are using their own personal devices at work, organizations probably will continue to provide workers with devices. And we wanted to talk about how you can make that process quicker and easier. Once employees have company-owned devices, or if you're going to support their employee-owned devices, there are techniques that you can use to make the break-fix process faster and easier. And really it comes down to creating intelligent IT policies and then having the tools that are going to help support you in delivering those and keeping within SLA, and we'll talk about those. Of course, we want to talk about why our product is so great for that, so we'll wrap up with a discussion of SmartDeploy itself, and we welcome you guys to submit any questions you have along the way. So a little bit on the organization itself. Prowess is the parent company of SmartDeploy Software, and it is a service business, IT integration and services. We did a lot of stuff with virtualization when that first became hot and saw a few recurring problems that we could fix with tools relatively easily. And we started doing exactly that, and that is how SmartDeploy was born. We've developed and grown it over time and have a number of partners as well as customers across industries and across business segments, from very small businesses through very, very large enterprises. Been around for about 10 years and currently have about 100 employees and have been recognized with a lot of nice awards and some really great reviews. So let's jump in. So the first scenario is onboarding new employees, and I'm sure that if you are in the practice or do the job of IT, you have discussions that go like this cartoon. This is a little bit of a comical situation, although we were in this once internally ourselves not too long ago, where there were a number of people coming on quickly, and we had to respond very quickly to get them devices and be productive. And that's, after all, the job of IT, which is to help advance the agenda of the business by making people more productive. So how do you get these people working and working quickly is part of the question. It's a very time-sensitive undertaking. It's a business-critical job. People can't do their work without their devices these days, for better or worse. And again, if you're thinking about IT consumerization policies and things, if you're allowing people to use their own devices, there are other factors to consider in this context as well. If you don't want people to use their own devices, there are still other considerations, right? So a lot to consider in getting this done.
So there's kind of three possible problems that we've outlined, and in talking to customers routinely, kind of one of these three scenarios seems to come up quite a bit lately anyway, and so we kind of wanted to talk about those in general, and you know, you guys tell us if you run into these kinds of things and how you end up solving them. But in general, one of the possible problems of, you know, with the cartoon says, hey, it's Friday and we got 12 new people and we got to quickly onboard them. One of them is, hey, I've got a bunch of different hardware models, and maybe you have a bunch of different images that correspond to all those models. But the chances are the images for each one of those machines is probably old. So then you kind of get into this, well, what should I do? Should I go and find that old machine I used to create and capture that image and go ahead and update it and rebuild it? Do I just start over and start feeding disks into those few machines that I have and manually rebuild them? You know, if I go and I use those images, are they all going to be you know, out of date and sitting at Windows updates for forever? It's all those kinds of challenges that seem to be, you know, coming up. So, you know, the overall concept is that you're not, you don't have a reliable image set that you can count on to be able to apply to whatever machine that you need to get it down to. So the general guidance that we want to give you as attendees is just that there's a concept of hardware independence, so that you can make your images and start to make your images based off of the software that the organization has agreed that you like to deploy, and not about the machines that you happen to deploy. Another possible problem is, hey, we don't have enough machines for these new employees that you want to onboard. So then you need to quickly go and order whatever you can get from whatever vendor in the time period that you need it. So the challenge is, you know, you're going to have to wait until you get that machine in stock to be able to start playing with it and create an image for it. And the other part is, if for the previous slide, there's a hardware independent notion, and so now you've got even more hardware to create images for and maintain them over time, and it gets super challenging. So, you know, you get a large image library that takes a lot of bandwidth and storage to keep in place, and it takes a lot of time to keep those things up to date over time. So it's a time-consuming task that, to Aaron's two previous points of all of this, you know, these tasks are business critical, and you know, they're time-consuming undertakings. So anecdotally, the way we start again to kind of talk about this is think about the concept of hardware independence and being able to make your images based off of the software you like, and not tie yourself so firmly to a one-to-one ratio between an image and a particular hardware model.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, different organizations approach this fundamentally differently, which is to say that some resellers will offer imaging services, and you'll say, okay, yeah, send it with Windows and Office and Acrobat or whatever. Many organizations still rely on the old way of loading device by device, and there are a lot of different tools that will allow you to do systematic system deployment and disk imaging. There are some drawbacks to certain solutions, and because of the scenarios you get into when you're onboarding new workers, you want to be sure that you've got the right tool set to be able to allow you to respond in a timely way and keep people working and keep everyone moving, because what you don't want to be stuck with is a ton of different types of devices and having to march through this manual process. It's extremely labor intensive, and although you know that you'll get it right every time because you're touching every device, as your business grows, it becomes a less and less tenable situation.
So the key considerations for this scenario are really try and get your images to be flexible and reliable. You want to be able to have the flexibility to apply those images to whatever machine that you need to be working on. And the other part is you need to be able to trust that that image is up to date, it's secure, it's compliant with your latest policies that you want. It's got all the Windows updates and correct applications that you've agreed you want to run. And it's consistent and repeatable, so that regardless of employee, you know that that person's starting out with the corporate standard payload of applications and patches and so forth that you agreed on. So as you think about your deployment process, consider a solution where updates can be both quick and easy to do, as well as, again, this hardware independence idea, so that you can apply your images to whatever machine you have.
One technique that we're great advocates of and that our product requires is the use of a virtual machine to create that gold reference image or that reference computer. And we just universally call it a virtual reference computer because it's in this environment that allows it to live on indefinitely. And because of a variety of the features of virtualization, it's much more flexible. You can move it, you can back it up obviously to storage, you can move it from computer to computer, and you always have it available. It turns on quickly, you can apply updates quickly, power it down, and it allows you to keep up quite easily with that. If you use that as the standard from which you create and manage your images, it's going to help get you down this road regardless of the solution you make. The challenge is if you have an imaging solution that requires you to image off of the device that you're imaging back onto, then you're kind of stuck with some of these problems that we discussed earlier. So it's really important to consider both the mechanism by which you're performing the updates, as well as the ability for that solution that you're using to deploy to address any environment, virtual or physical. And I know we're obviously sensitive to the fact as well that a lot of people are considering virtual infrastructures, VDI, either desktop, local desktop virtualization, or data center centralized VDI, and those are important considerations as well.
Yeah, one other thing to add on that comes up with customers quite a bit is, the scenario we talked about, hey, we got to order a bunch of new gear, wait for it to get here, build out the image and so forth. That's one other kind of nice benefit of having a virtual machine on site already, is that you can shorten the amount of time that you need to spend once those devices actually get there, since you're already able to build out the software and apps regardless of the machine you need to land them on.
Right, so that's another key point, which is that historically the best practice is that you have your OS only or OS and a very minimal application set. We're advocating more and more strongly that you load in as many applications as can be repeatedly deployed. Certain applications cannot, but for those that can, you can just load them into this image because you have the ability to keep the image up to date and always be deploying latest and greatest, fully up to date, which has a lot of great implications. One is you get your people working faster. They don't have to sit there and wait for all the software updates to play out or the software to be deployed. And number two, you've got a shrunken security threat because you are deploying everything fully updated. So it'll be fully patched and locked down and ready to go. So there are a lot of advantages to that. Okay, Next scenario is break fix. The idea here is that we have a lot of users using computers at varying levels of technical ability, and people often get, you know, whether innocently or deliberately are bringing threats into the network or doing things to make their systems less stable. And it's frustrating for IT to have to deal with these kinds of problems, especially when they're recurring problems. And it is increasingly common for people to use an imaging solution as a mechanism to solve the break-fix problem, which is to say that increasingly people are creating IT policies that say after a certain amount of time of troubleshooting, we flatten and reload your system and start over, because it just isn't worth IT's time or the loss of your productivity as a worker to spend troubleshooting this problem that might just come back up. So, couple things to consider. Spence, go ahead.
Yeah, so a lot of customers, because they don't have a reliable imaging solution or process, they tend to not use imaging, or they'll use that as a last-ditch effort in order to resolve some of these break-fix problems. So the key here is really one of reliability, that you can trust whatever imaging solution that you like to use is going to be quicker than just sitting and applying additional troubleshooting time to the device that you're working on. The reality is, as we know, some issues you can't resolve them, or it's just going to take forever to do it. There's this other concept of Windows rot that we all know about, that, you know, of course, Windows likes to be reloaded every so often to keep up with performance. So it's kind of a double whammy, where you're spending a ton of your IT help desk time troubleshooting a machine, and then once you get it resolved, then that machine may not be running all that great anyway. So I guess our main idea here is that get yourself an SLA in place and be able to get yourself an SLA in place so that you decide, hey, we're going to spend X amount of time working on this system, and if it exceeds that amount, then we reload the machine, and we reload to a last known good state and a known configuration and a set of a set baseline that you know that you can count on and build off of. And oftentimes you'll be more efficient than the additional troubleshooting time, and the target device is more secure and performant than it would have been had you just spent a bunch of time working on it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for us to reflect on this problem, because even our own internal IT people say that in the past they would not even consider re-imaging a system when they're in a troubleshooting situation on the desktop, because they didn't have the reliability of the imaging system, and they were concerned that that would just create more problems and cost more time. And so if we really want to get this person back up and working, let's just figure out what the problem is and solve it. And if we really get far enough down the road that we have to start over, you know, that's kind of the absolute, Spencer said earlier, the last option, the last-ditch effort, simply because it's not worth the pain and trouble of imaging. And this is part of the concern that a lot of organizations have about these kinds of solutions, is that they're not always that practical unless everything is just right. And so don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse here, but part of what we're saying is that if you have the right solution, you can make the flatten and reload or wipe and load break fix offering as a part of your standard model, and make that an IT policy that is just standard. Very large organizations are able to do it in part because they have the resources to tool up for it, they have the people with the expertise, and they've got the support to get it done. In mid-size and smaller organizations, a lot of times there either isn't the level of expertise, or you just don't have the time and focus to get the system to where it is. And what we're here to tell you today is we've created such a system. And we'll talk more about it, but there really is a convenient and simple way to be able to do this that isn't going to create more problems and a nightmare situation for you as you consider these things and go down the road. So sorry for kind of getting the car out of the horse fence. Go ahead.
No, that's really it. You know, in talking to some of our, even our IT guys, you think about all the logistics that come into play about creating an image if you can't rely on it. And for break fix, that means go back into the IT closet, find the matching model that you need to, you know, do the break fix redeploy target system. You know, stand that up, make sure the image contains what you want, capture it back over to the server, you know, pull that down to the target machine you're having a problem to, and so, you know, easily a half a day's worth of work is gone trying to resolve one issue. So our point is, try and make whatever imaging process you like to do fast and reliable. You got to be able to count on it, and it's got to be quick. And make it easy, otherwise you'll never do it. If it's a huge pain, then you'll do the pain calculation and say, is it easier to go back up 2 floors, back to my IT desk, and try and find that image and so forth, or just sit here for another 10 or 15 minutes because I think I can fix this machine. And you got to play that game versus if you have something that's quick, easy, reliable, and flexible, then you can just do as part of break fix, set yourself an SLA and fix the machine and move on.
So how do we address this? What is SmartDeploy? How does it work? And what do we do to make this better for you? There are several characteristics of our product that make it work really, really well for these 2 scenarios. One is simply the fact that the product is reliable and that it will work the same way regardless of the target. In fact, it will work the same way whether you're deploying a client or a server, or deploying the server hardware, a laptop, a desktop, a virtual machine. It really doesn't matter, in part because the architecture is completely modular, and we've physically and logically separated the hardware or device or platform-related information from the software and user information and user data, if you want to think about it that way. So in that way, not only are we able to increase reliability, but we're able to achieve authentic hardware independence the right way. And we have other webcasts we've done in the past that if you have questions about this, we're happy, of course, to talk to you, but we encourage you to take a look at those to learn and understand what we do and how we do it. But that is part of the way that we're able to make this go. Another facet to this is what I mentioned earlier around making updates so much faster and easier by using a virtual reference computer. And if the architecture of our product was different, it wouldn't really work as well to use a virtual machine as a reference computer. But the solution was architected specifically to work in this modern paradigm of virtualization and capitalize on the flexibility and portability of virtual machines to make imaging faster and easier. So provisioning of new devices becomes really simple regardless of whether you've been a Dell shop and you want to switch to Lenovo, or you're really excited about those new HP Ultrabooks and your reseller's going to give you a great deal on them and we want to use those going forward. It's all the same from a tool perspective when you use SmartDeploy. Similar story relative to break fix. It's the same architecture, it's the same technical approach that makes it really easy and predictable to flatten and reload an existing system. Even if it's a really old system, it all works the same regardless, and it allows you to get back to this known good state.
One last thing, I know it's a little bit in the weeds and somewhat technical, but one of the things customers tell us they really love about SmartDeploy is how we treat SysPrep. So it's 2 things. 1, we take care of it for you, and 2, we run it at deployment time. So the benefit of SysPrep happens without the negative side effects of its destructive nature. So that makes updates really fast and easy because all you do is turn on your virtual machine again, run whatever configuration changes and updates you want, shut it down and recapture it. There is no, oh, I've already done that 2 or 3 times, time to start all over. And with the hardware independence nature, you don't have separate images at all because your machines are different. So you can really get down to one clean golden-based image that you can apply truly to every device.
And because of this way we handle sysprep, it lives forever, right? That image really never has to be scrapped and started over unless you've just had it forever and you want to just reinstall and start clean, and that's fine too. But the approach is really, really ideal in terms of continuity of maintaining a imaging program, and really takes a fresh look at the process of imaging and the way that it's applied to these different scenarios, and makes it manageable whether you've got 5,500 seats that you're managing or 55 seats. It works the same and can yield the same benefits, especially in smaller organizations where you're probably tapped for a lot of tasks. This solution is very straightforward. If you have to do an extremely large volume of desktops and you are just the deployment expert, it's equally powerful because it has the flexibility and modularity to bolt on to different solutions and streamline the workflow. Saves a lot of headaches.
This is a big graph that says we're faster than the competition. These are some competitive products that we run into, and a lot of organizations that we talk to have used one of these, Ghost or SnapDeploy or MDT, and there's some real tangible benefits of using SmartDeploy as it relates to speed and productivity. We're able to keep IT professionals more productive and have them move on to more strategic projects because they can get their imaging projects taken care of more quickly. This same tool and product and process works regardless of the OS, so not only hardware independence, but whether you guys are doing XP and doing a Windows 7 migration or considering Windows 8, we'll be ready for that too. But desktop and server, one tool kind of does everything. And it's one of the biggest things that happened as we looked at this study was that a lot of the time was spent dealing with device drivers. And the benefit with SmartDeploy is those device driver packages are pre-created and included with the product for you. So you can visit our product library, and chances are there's already going to be a pack for that major business class OEM device in our inventory for you. The even better part is every end system only gets exactly and precisely the drivers that it has to have. There's a direct correlation between the number of drivers that you can have in a big driver repository and how much time it takes at deployment. Well, we sidestep all of those things because we know what machine it is and what OS it's getting, and we can correctly apply the minimal set of drivers to ensure that device manager is 100% clean and that device is fully functional.
We're getting close to the end of our time, but so we'll move quickly through these last couple slides. Basically, SmartDeploy can work completely independent of infrastructure, meaning you can run it on your workstation, spin up a VM, capture it, download the other tools, bundle that up into deployment media, and go crazy and deploy to tons of different devices. Or if you have a sophisticated IT management infrastructure, you can bolt it onto that using the Pixie service and whatever other tools exist and deploy that way. Likewise, if you don't have a deployment solution and are planning to get a more sophisticated infrastructure in time, buying SmartDeploy now will have immediate value and almost certainly be able to integrate into that management infrastructure in the long term. So it's a safe bet. We've got lots of great customers, and there's case studies on our website, so we welcome you to check that out. Lots of time and cost savings possible.
With the flexible architecture, it's been able to work for an extremely wide variety of customers, anybody from 5 and 10 seats to customers with 100,000 seats.
Absolutely. So generally in closing here, we welcome you. I want to leave a little time, and we're willing to stay on to do some Q&A here, and there have been a number of questions that have come in. But we welcome you to take this challenge. We'll give you a pair of Skull Candy headphones if you're willing to attend a demo, and we'll help you guide you through an evaluation of the product. We got a fully functional 15-day trial, and if you need more time, we can extend that and keep the product working for you. So we really hope we'll take a look at this, and with that, I guess we'll jump to some questions, yeah?
Yeah, great. Thanks, you guys. We're right up on 30 minutes, so if you have a few minutes to stick around, we can answer some of these questions. If for some reason we aren't able to answer your questions right now live, we can certainly follow up with you. You can reach out to us if you want to get in touch with us. You can email us at sales@smartdeploy.com. But we will go ahead and just jump into a few of these questions here. So we have David wondering, how do you handle multiple serialized software within one image?
Yeah, so the basic process for generalizing a machine is to run SysPrep. SysPrep will go in and touch any software that has a hook into it, which is developed by that third-party software manufacturer, and you know, Microsoft has a ton of documentation on how that's done. In the event that that software, that third-party software vendor doesn't have a hook into SysPrep that actually generalizes and resets goods and stuff like that on their software, there's the ability to add that application after the fact, so to basically create a task to install it so that it's generalized each time the deployment takes place.
Great, thanks, Eric. What would you recommend to do to keep an image up to date with Microsoft Windows updates?
Yeah, generally our customers will have their OS and applications installed on their virtual machine and subsequently inside their image. So the way customers do it with SmartDeploy, especially because we run SysPrep at deployment time like Eric was talking about, you can keep that reference system around indefinitely. So the process is really start up the virtual machine, make whatever configuration changes that you want, and just shut it down. We have what we call a capture wizard, and we basically browse to that virtual machine, and offline we convert it right from virtual machine format into the Windows imaging file format, or WIM, essentially our image. So that's generally how we do it.
And you can kind of make a strategy around how you want to approach that. If you keep up to date with all the patches that are released, you can fire up the VM, patch it, shut it down, and then recapture the image just as you need to do deployments. You may want to do it every time. You may want to, do it every couple months or once a quarter. Different customers do it differently just based on their business needs and how they like to manage things.
Thanks, guys. Okay, Troy has a question. For a training room or classroom, what is the process for imaging all PCs, for example, 20 PCs per room, and have them each get a different name and work group based on room?
Yeah, so there's a number of different workflows that could accomplish that process. You could network boot and deploy that image via the network, which would probably be the easiest, least time-consuming way. Also, you could, deploy each machine individually or in some other manner. As far as computer naming, there's options within SmartDeploy to, get computer names based on WMI queries or randomize a computer name or, enter manually computer name or something like that. Thanks,
Eric. So Rob has asked a few different questions about how SmartDeploy compares to Altiris.
Altiris is a very, very big solution. It is a fairly comprehensive suite of IT management tools that does everything end-to-end, operations, configuration management, patch management. They have an imaging solution. And SmartDeploy today is a point solution that really was designed to do the job of disk imaging perfectly and do it the same way regardless of the target device or operating system. So we've chosen this as the starting point, and we're expanding with each release to add more and more features and functions. Our aspiration is not to be like Altiris, but rather to address more and more of the life cycle of a computer operating environment, from deployment, update, refresh and reload over time, and the management related to that. So you can expect that over time we would add things like the ability to push over a LAN. In fact, that'll be in the next major release, which is due out later this year, and doing more in the way of software deployment, post-deployment, or software title deployment, post-OS deployment, and some of those management tasks over time. But the way that we do disk imaging is very complicated. Disk imaging in general is an extremely sophisticated undertaking, which is why it's typically so prone to so many problems. And we've been able to resolve a lot of those problems, and we've been able to successfully get this out and get it used by hundreds of customers in its current incarnation. We hope to grow that feature set more and more and more.
Yeah, so there's also a question around this on how SmartDeploy integrates with different deployment solutions as well. So there's a number of documents up on our website on how SmartDeploy would integrate with another deployment solution or management solution for that matter. SmartDeploy does handle the end-to-end deployment process. Really tying into those different solutions is to leverage the management and targeting of clusters of computers or something like that. SmartDeploy can integrate into a number of different technologies out there because we're using industry standard technology, underlying technology with the product. So our image file type happens to be WIM or Windows Imaging File Format. Boot media is based on Windows PE. So just those facts lets us integrate with a number of different software products as well.
Great. We're over on time quite a bit, so we can do one more question here, and then anybody that we didn't get to, we'll certainly get in contact with you and answer some questions. One last question. Let's see.
You can kind of do two. So Rob had a question about Apple. We're Windows only. So any Windows OS and Windows app. We don't do Linux, Unix, or Mac. And then Adam has a question about pulling data from the machine. Yeah, we can do that. We would leverage the user state migration tool or USMT to be able to pull the data down, and you get a clean reload of the system and the old user data back on the machine as one seamless process.
There's one more at the very bottom, Heidi. I thought that would pertain specifically to the scenarios we discussed. Nicole asked they want to use an imaging solution for break fix and want to figure out how to do it. I think the main thing, Nicole, is to demo the product. I mean, download it and see if you can make this go. Get on the phone with a couple of our people. We can get an engineer to talk you through how to make this work. But the main thing is install a virtual machine, capture it, see how the product works, and we can talk you through a process of how to bring that to bear inside your organization. It's really straightforward. It'll take you a couple hours total to get a feel for what we've got, and then we can talk you through how this might work and be used inside your organization.
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Watch for the email tomorrow that will have a link to the recording and also a link to this SmartDeploy challenge if you decide you want to sign up and try SmartDeploy. We'll have a few more helpful links within that email. And like I said, feel free to reach out to us if you have additional questions. And we thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and hope that you found the information helpful, and we look forward to working with you. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you.